To deepen our knowledge of the studio habit of mind, engage and persist, we will be creating a functional ceramic mug. To engage in the act of making as an artist, we will be developing a focus on clay and its processes as our material and using one of our artistic conventions, personal voice, to pursue a subject matter that is important to us. We will persist in our making by exploring a new medium in clay and continuing to work until our mug is complete, regardless of the problems we may encounter, learning along the way. In this way, we will better grasp our artistic concepts of practicing or continuing to learn and improve by repeatedly trying, and persevering by staying focused on our project until it's done. So for this project, we will be creating a clay mug that is designed to be a reflection of your personality. That's where your personal voice comes in. We're going to follow one of your thumbnail sketches, and we're going to be using 2 ceramic building processes, slabs and coils. For this project, we'll be focusing on balance as our principle of design. Remember that even though we focus on a new principle in each project, we will still be considering the principles that we've already discussed in our previous work. So far, we've talked about contrast, meaning the difference in the elements of design, and we've talked about movement, in our work, the illusion of depth. Balance is the distribution of visual weight in a work of art. There are 2 types of balance: actual balance and implied balance. Actual balance refers to 3D forms. Remember, a form is a shape in the round. Actual balance occurs when a form in the round, meaning we can view it from all sides, balances on a flat surface. That means it stands, doesn't wobble, doesn't fall over. Actual balance refers to sculptures, ceramics, pieces that are meant to be seen all the way around. Implied balance refers to 2D works. This happens when a work feels balanced throughout the composition. This is done through the elements of design like color, value, texture, form, shape, line. Those elements work together to create balance. Just as with most of the other principles, balance is subjective. What may appear balanced to me may not appear balanced to you. For this project, we'll be working with actual balance. To begin our process, we're going to be discussing the basics of strong shape design and how it pertains to this project. We will then create 3 different thumbnail sketches of how our mug is going to look in the round, both in form and function. Finally, we'll build our mugs using the techniques that will be demonstrated in class. As discussed in our very first project, shape is one of the basic elements of art and design. There are 3 foundational shapes: circles, squares, and triangles. As we learned, these shapes can be modified to make different shapes. A rotated square is a diamond. A flattened circle is an oval, and so on. Artists use these basic shapes together to make more complex forms. As we can see in the image here, the characters are made out of basic shapes. The snail is a circle combined with other ovals and triangles to make its form. The cowboy gecko is a combination of circles, triangles, cylinders, squares, all put together to make its form. We can break down these more complex shapes, in this case characters, into simple shapes. By building up simple shapes, artists create complexity. We can see the importance of basic shapes in not only character design, but in how a mug is created as well. The strongest designs in any art form are based on simple shapes. As mentioned before, these designs can be built by combining different simple shapes together: circles, squares, triangles, ovals, etc. Designs that are too complex or too complicated become visually overwhelming. Our eye just doesn't know where to look or doesn't have any area to rest. This mug is a good example of using basic, simple shapes. The face is constructed out of a triangle for the nose, ovals for the eyes, squares to make the teeth. Even the hands can be thought of as cylinders with circles on the ends. As artists, if we think about creating designs using basic, simple shapes, we don't need to be intimidated that our drawings will not be as detailed or complex as we want them to be. By using simple shapes to begin with and building them up, layering them with each other, we can build complexity. This idea works especially well with clay. Clay is a versatile medium and very plastic, meaning that when it's wet, we can sculpt it into about any shape that we want it to be in. And with patience, practice, and perseverance, our artistic concepts, we can find success. But when you're first starting out, it can be frustrating if you don't start your designs by using basic, simple shapes. Basic, simple shapes tend to communicate our ideas most effectively because they're universal and they're well recognized. This is an example of mine, an owl mug that I made. It's not extremely complex, but it is constructed out of basic, simple shapes. The feet started as ovals, which I cut triangles out of. The ears are triangles that I simply bent. The belly and face are large ovals. The wings are tapered ovals. The beak is a triangle. The eyes are circles. The feathers on the chest were circles that I cut crescent moon shapes out of. All of these basic, simple shapes stacked together created the design that I had envisioned in my head. This is where our artistic convention of personal voice comes in. Now that we understand shape and its importance in design and communication, we can take our own personality, our personal voice, in what we choose to create, our subject matter. If you're anything like me, a blank piece of paper can often be intimidating. I tend to start all of my sketches by jotting down ideas first. I write anything that comes into mind, the good and the bad. It's good to brainstorm through a lot of ideas to get to your best idea. Think about several different aspects of your personality that you would like to incorporate into this design. What are your interests? What holds your attention? What do you really like? Is it music? Is it an animal? Is it a sport you play? Is it something that you just think is cool? Once you have that list, try them out in a visual format by sketching them. Quickly draw your ideas in a rough, loose form with little detail. Make sure you're focusing on building these designs out of simple, basic shapes. Remember, the element of art and design that we're studying is form. Form is the three-dimensional collection of shapes. We will translate the flat shapes that you draw in your sketch into a three-dimensional form. Once you've worked through several sketches, we'll choose your best to make into the finished functional mug. Monsters are something that interests me. My 3 thumbnail sketches are based on monsters. An important artistic idea to keep in mind is that form follows function. What does that mean? That means the form, or the general shape that your mug takes, must also be functional as well. In our case, it must be a mug that you can lift and drink out of. In this sketch of mine, I thought I'd have a little lid on the top of my mug that you could remove when adding your drink, and a small circle opening at the monster's mouth to insert a straw. So again, form follows function. The design of the mug, its shape, is derived from its function, or what it's used for. So as you're sketching, remember this. Where you place your handles should not only be an important part of the design, but it should also be comfortable to use. Where you place any extra details should also be considered as well. Remember, our function is a design that is easy to drink from, since our finished product is going to be a mug that you could use on a daily basis. The form should be aesthetically pleasing, but also functional. In this monster mug sketch of mine, I thought about form and function. The monster's 2 arms serve as handles. When I did this sketch at first, I put the eyes on the front side of the mug. But then, remembering that form follows function, I moved the eyes to the back of the mug. That way I could drink out of it. It's important to remember that this mug has to be functional, something that you could drink out of. But the design should also carry your personal voice. Here are a couple examples of how form follows function. In the mug on the left, the character's arms go up to its head, but they also serve as handles. In the mug on the right, the tail serves as the handle. When thinking about handles and the idea that form follows function, your handle becomes a crucial part of your design. It should be there to lift the mug, but it should also be visually interesting. So what could it be to be both? Could it be a character's arm, the wing of a bird, the neck of a guitar, a treble clef like in this example? Here are a couple of great examples of handles that are both functional and aesthetically pleasing. Something that your eye likes to look at. An integral part of the design. In the example with the cactus, the arms are both a part of a cactus and handles. In the octopus example, the tentacle becomes a handle to lift the mug. But I want you to be playful with this. Have fun. Experiment with the media and your design. Think about our other artistic convention, proportion. Are some things really short? Some things really long? How will you work out proportion in your mug? Remember that proportion is when certain objects feel in balance with others. For example, how big my monster's arms are compared to his body. Are they in proportion or out of proportion? That's up to you as the artist. Some things to consider are having a lid that you remove from your mug, raising your mug up so that it sits on legs, having the opening of your mug only be enough to pour liquid in and drink out of. These are all things to take into consideration as you're drawing your mug. Remember, though, that your final design must be a functional mug. It has to be something that you could possibly drink from, even if you don't plan on ever using it for that purpose. Here's some great examples of both proportion and those things to consider. In the hedgehog mug on the left, the proportions seem a bit unbalanced on purpose. Those are really skinny legs for such a round body. In the mug on the right, the artist added actual legs to the bottom of the mug, which is a clever concept. Don't forget that your personal voice, your interests, should shine through in what you design for your mug. There are so many different ways that your design can be successful with this project. Consider not only what could be on the outside of your mug, but what could also be on the inside of your mug. Is there a hidden surprise? After we have our chosen design, we'll create our mug. Through practice and perseverance, we'll be learning how to best work with clay. You'll be learning several hand-building techniques, such as wedging the clay, learning how to slip and score, building with slabs, and building with coils. You'll even learn how to pull a handle. As we're working, we're going to keep in mind our artistic conventions of proportion and personal voice. We'll also consider the element of design form as we're building, and the principle of design balance to ensure that our mug is functional. Lastly, this piece is meant to be viewed in the round. That means our composition should look good from every angle. You'll be turning in one finished mug. It will be a minimum of 4 inches high. That measurement will be taken before it completely dries out. This is to see that through perseverance, you can build your mug to an exact height. Your design should be based on simple shapes, and how simple shapes can communicate strong designs. Your mug must have a handle. The handle should be well thought out and should be an integral part of the design. But it's okay if it's just a plain handle too. Somewhere on your mug, you must incorporate the element of art, texture. It does not need to be over the entire surface. You can add texture in several ways into clay. It can be scratched or etched into the surface. It can be stamped onto the surface. It can be carved away. Your final design should be from your personal voice. It should say something about your interests or who you are. Once your mug is built, it will be bisque fired, which takes your clay to a permanent form. After it's bisque fired, we will be adding glaze. Glaze gives it its color and its shine. Glaze also makes your mug functional, in that without glaze, you would not be able to drink from it. Glaze makes your mug food safe, or in our case, drink safe. Through this project, we'll be engaging with clay as our new medium and persisting until we have a completed, functional ceramic mug form.